Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and today we're going to discuss crafting and everything that you can do with it and how the whole new system works and what are some of the best ways to craft items to make it feel like you had a bit more potential than you actually had on an item. So let's go ahead and start with what crafting is, how you get materials. So first off, you go hunting throughout the world of Edera and you're going to find shards on the ground. You pick up the shards, they'll sit in your inventory, you'll find ruins, you'll find glyphs, you'll find all of these names. They'll sit in your inventory. When you open it up, you'll see them, and then you want to click the transfer crafting items, and it throws it to this side. And you're going to find things like for glyphs, you have the glyph of hope, which is going to have a chance when you craft to not use any forging potential, a chance to kind of protect you from using it. You're going to have a glyph of chaos, which can change another tier into a random another tier of an item as long as it could have came on the item to begin with. We're going to use these, so I'm just going to tell you what they are right now, and then I'll actually show you what they do in practice. The third one is the glyph of order. This one prevents the rule of an affix changing when you upgrade it. So basically what that means is if you got a max world tier 1 that had high and you continue to want to craft that up, you could use this glyph and keep it max world all the way up as far as you could go. And then the last glyph, I don't have one at the moment, but it's a glyph of despair, which will give a chance for you to seal an item, which can allow you to put a fifth affix onto an item. So I can't show you that one today, but I can tell you exactly how it works when we get there. Then for ruins, we have the rune of shattering, which will shatter an item, giving you back the shards. A rune of refinement, which re-rolls all of the affix ranges on an item. We'll go through that. We have the rune of removal, which will randomly remove an affix that's on an item. A rune of discovery, which is probably the best rune for leveling up. It's really cool, and I'll show you exactly what I mean by that. Then we have a rune of shaping, and the rune of shaping will change the implicit rules of the item, allowing you, if you got a really bad implicit, not to change the implicit, but to re-rule the rule on it to try and give you more closer to the maximum, but it can roll any range in there. We have the rune of ascendance, which can turn a item into a unique of the same base type. We're going to use one of those, and I'll show you exactly what it does. And then the rune of creation, which is probably the rarest one to find, and it actually duplicates an item, allowing you to have two of that item, so you only want to do it on the best items that you possibly have that you plan on using for legendary items. So let's go ahead and start by just what crafting is. So if I throw an item in and I want to craft on it, how it starts is you get to choose 2 prefixes and 2 suffixes. If I choose a prefix and I go to my crafting materials, I can see everything that I've already found and all of the different shards that I have found on either the ground or that I have found by shattering items that I've broken down in order to get them. So on this weapon, I can place any one of these. So let's just say we're going to put some critical strike multiplier on there. Now, I can use a glyph of hope, and the glyph of hope will try and save me from this 1 to 10 forging potential that might be used. Now, a lot of people know that common items have the least amount of forging potential. Then you have magic items, which have the second least amount. Then you have the rares that have the second most. And then you have exalteds, which have the most forging potential when they fall. So the best crafting times you're going to have are an exalted, rares, and as you go down the list, it's going to be worse. For instance, on this one could literally make it to where I could only put 2 tier 1s on here and it's game over. It'll be done in literally 2 shots. We could get 10 attempts out of it or more, but that's very unlikely to happen. So you're not going to have a super easy time crafting something good out of a common item, but there are ways around that. So for instance, let's just say that I throw something on this and I say upgrade. We got 1 forging potential used, which is the best roll we could have had, and we managed to get a tier 1 on there. If I go for tier 2, we used 8 forging potential, and we're already down to just 5 forging potential left, which means this could be my very last craft. Now, an easy way for a new item for you to get around this is you want to throw on a rune of discovery. If you find common items on the ground, this is a good way to possibly get 4 fixes on an item that you want. It's RNG, but it doesn't use any potential. That's the best part. A rune of discovery does not cost any forging potential, and it's going to add 3 random tier 1s. It can add 4 if they were all missing. It'll add in everything that's missing. So you throw that on there, and boom, suddenly we have a whole bunch of things on here that we can work with. That saved us a bunch of forging potential. Now, of course, these might not be things you need, but that's where the rune of chaos comes in. You can use a chaos and then upgrade them, hoping to switch it to something that you want. In this case, it used 2 forging potential. Now we have chance to blind on hit. For the damage over time, we can change that, and we got cast speed. So now for our wand, we actually have cast speed, which is a very good affix. So on this, which was very unlikely to get even 3 tier 1s, we suddenly have a tier 7 item. Definitely doubled probably the total amount of affixes that we could have gotten on it by starting with a Rune of Discovery. Granted, they may not have been affixes we wanted, but you'll find plenty of common items and plenty of Runes of Discovery to do that for your early crafting in the game, to be able to get more on them than you probably would have otherwise. This way you can get a pretty decent rare item in a few attempts without having to expend a lot of things or getting frustrated that the item ran out of forging potential in just a couple of crafts. Then we have the Rune of Shattering, which is going to take all of those affixes and it's going to bring them back to me. And just like that, we have all of the tiers of the things that we brought. Now, another thing that you can do with common items, if I want to just show you, if we had another one here, is if I throw on a Rune of Discovery again, now we have 4 things. The health is good. If I was doing a fire build, that's good. The ward and potion on use, the cleansing is always good. Lightning resist, probably not needed. But notice how it took no forging potential, and we have 4 affixes that we can work with. I'd want to keep the health, so I definitely want to keep the good old Glyph of Hope in hopes that we don't use any forging potential, and we craft away. And just like that, we got tier 5 health on a very basic one. We got a tier 8 out of this one. We probably would have been lucky to get just 3 tier 1s if we hadn't used the Rune of Discovery. Now the next glyph we have is the Glyph of Order, which prevents a thing from changing its range. So for instance, on this tier 5 health that we just did, the range on that was mid-range. We got 56 to 75, we ended up getting a 66 out of that. That's mid-range. If I would have kept that glyph and continued, let's say for instance on our ward gained on potion use, 100% chance to cleanse, it's low. We got 23 ward, which is on the lower end. It would keep the low end all the way to 25, which means that you would just keep the low roll. You want to use this whenever you have a high roll. Say you had on the lightning resist, you had 9 out of 9. You could use that and get it up to tier 5, and you would have the max roll on tier 5, which would make it really, really useful. And then the Glyph of Despair, which we can't use because I don't have any we don't have forging potential, would be something I could use on an affix, and if it succeeds, it'll either raise it up to tier 2 or it'll throw the tier 1 down below, and you can have another new suffix to put in here, or if you had done a prefix, a new prefix to put in. Alright, the next one that we have is the Rune of Shaping, which will re-roll the implicits. Now this item's done, so I'm going to show you it on a different item. So on this item, I'm going to go ahead and use a Rune of Shaping, and that's going to re-roll the implicit. On this, you can see we got the bare minimum spell critical strike chance, we got a 2 out of 6, and we got 11 int. It's going to re-roll both of those. So when I use this, and you want to use a Glyph of Hope every time to try and save you from the forging potential, in this case, the Glyph of Hope actually preserved our forging potential, so it cost nothing. We got +3 spell critical strike chance and -3 int. So on it, you can see we went from 11 int down to 8, but we got 5% base spell critical strike chance instead of only 2. And it will tell you what happened down here, so you can see if it was better or worse. For instance, that, if you were trying to build into spell crit, was a much better deal. The next rune that we have here is the Rune of Removal, which will randomly remove one of these. Boom, it decided to take the necrotic damage. The next rune we have is the Rune of Refinement. On this, we have a 47% chance to shock attackers. By using this, it's going to re-roll that. Actually, we're at a forging potential, so let me use a different one here. Let me re-roll on our rolls here. And you can see here that our rolls are, we got 7 to 7 on that, so it doesn't matter for the melee damage. 57 to 71, we have a 64. It's going to re-roll within all of those ranges for everything. And when I use it, you can see now we have 61. We got the 24 health on kill, and we actually went up on the 65% damage taken from critical strikes instead of only 63. And that is supposed to say less damage taken from critical strikes. Don't get too confused by that. Now this has the most forging potential, which allows us to do a lot of things with it, and we could probably max this one out to tier 20 because of just the way it is. Now say, obviously this one's a good one, but say you didn't want health on kill, you can use your Glyph of Chaos and you can try and fix that. Now we have a chance to chill on hit. We also got a critical success, which brought up our melee damage. And we didn't even have any potential used or crafting materials used for that one. We got really lucky with that critical success, which is really nice and probably going to allow us to actually max this one out. Oh, well, we got a tier 19, almost maxed it out, but we take 99% less damage from critical strikes, which is basically almost exactly 100% CSA, which is really nice. And we basically maxed out the rest of it. This is actually a really good weapon that we just got, which started at around tier 15, and we got all the way up to tier 19 just like that. And the last thing we have is an exalted item, And the reason I want to show an exalted item is because I just want to show how far you can actually go with the forging potential, because 37 forging potential, and some of these roll up into the mid 40s, is a lot of forging potential. So let's just say this one has the affixes I want. It's got block chance, it's got health, it's got healing effectiveness. Cold resist isn't really needed, so I'm going to actually try and change that one. And we got chance to shock attackers, which I guess is okay. But let's just go ahead and max this one out. You can literally just use your Glyph of Hope and you can get really, really far with this just because of how much forging potential you have. So it gives you plenty of opportunity to do a lot of things with it. And as you can see here, look at that, we still have 8 forging potential and we maxed out at tier 21. Exalted items, or just even a bad base exalted item with a lot of forging potential, has a lot of potential to get you an item that you actually need, with a lot of opportunities to change things around. The final thing that I want to show you is a Rune of Ascendance, which is going to change a weapon into a unique. So for instance, I'm going to use a Rune of Ascendance here, and this will change a two-handed staff into any unique two-handed staff in the game. It could be anything. It could be the rare Omni. It could be a more common two-handed staff like the Curse of Perseverance. So we're going to go ahead and throw that in and use it, and we happen to get Helvar's Pledge in this example. So that's all it does. You can get set items, you can get unique items, you can get anything that doesn't drop specifically from a boss when using it, and now you have it and can do anything. As for our shield, just to show you what a duplication does, this one still had forging potential left. You do have to have some forging potential left in order to duplicate. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what a Rune of Creation does. And if I use it, now you can see it's on my mouse cursor. I have a second one, and now we're going to have 2 of these that have the exact same, but now there is no forging potential left. And we have 2 of them. Remember, if you use a Rune of Despair and put a 5th affix on these, you can no longer use it for making a legendary item. It must only have 4 affixes, but if it has 5, it makes it a good item for you to use yourself, but it won't ever be used for a legendary recipe. And that pretty much rounds out the crafting and what each of the runes do, how to use them, and why you can make some good stuff out of common items, and like the best way to do it. I hope you guys found this useful. Hope you were able to figure something out that maybe you didn't know before. As always, stay safe and have a good day.